Well, good afternoon. My name is Tim Gillian. I'm a T6 pilot here flying today at Clow International. It's Bolingbrook's answer to the air show 2022. I'm here with a good friend, Mike Hahn. He's also a formation-rated T6 pilot, and collectively we'll both tell you just a little bit about our airplanes. Mine is, again, a North American AT6. Mine was manufactured in 1944, and it was used by the military all the way through 1958. And basically what happened with the AT6, any pilot who eventually went on to fly any of the fighters, the Corsair, the Mustang, the Bearcats, the Hellcats, they had to fly this airplane first, and not only fly it, but master it. And I can tell you that I've been flying it for 22 years. I'm nowhere near mastering it yet.
How many hours do you have in it?
I have probably 1,700 hours in the T6. And to put that in perspective, frequently when our pilots during the war would transition from this airplane into their fighter, they were at 100 or 110, 115 hours. And consequently, many of them were killed in training. So again, when my airplane came out of the service, it was sold for $600. And the guy who bought it sold it 3 years later for $1,800 and thought he hit the lottery. With that, I'll let Mike tell you a little bit about his very unique airplane.
Hi, my name is Mike Hahn, and this is my North American AT6C Texan. It was built down in Dallas in 1943, November 1943, and it was sent immediately after production with a group of airplanes down to South Africa. The paint scheme that you see it in here is the same paint scheme. In fact, all of the paint except for the orange, which I've redone the orange and some of the gray, all this paint is original South African paint and is probably 40, 50 years old. But it's the same paint that was on the airplane the day that it was delivered to me back in 1996. And I've had the airplane since. It went brand new, and the South Africans had it for 50 some years. And myself and a group of guys, we got together and we brought a bunch of them back to the United States back in '96. And this is one of them. Mine was a pilot training airplane for the South African Air Force and also a surface attack trainer. While it was over there, it had hard points on it, so it could drop bombs, had rockets, had a gun in one wing, a camera in the other wing, and the gun sight inside of it. We had to have them all demilitarized before we imported them into the States, but this was a surface attack trainer as well as a pilot trainer.
So, interestingly, I don't know, we'll just try to get Mike's mic. Sure. So interestingly, the South Africans actually used these airplanes as trainers through 1995. So when you think about the lifespan from the late 30s all the way through 1995, it's just an example of how prolific this airplane was and North American was when they built them. The airplanes are powered by a 600 horsepower Pratt & Whitney R1340. And the engine has been around since the mid-30s, and it's really a pretty much bulletproof engine. A lot of smaller countries use these airplanes during the various wars as forward air controllers, including in Vietnam. But it was used for all kinds of missions, including gunnery and surface-to-air stuff and troops in contact stuff. So it really is an amazing airplane, and it's a great flying airplane and a great formation airplane.
Okay, and yeah, I started out flying actually in the military, where I flew fighters in the Air Force, flew F4s and F-16s, and got into this. I was flying general aviation at the same time, but got into this because it's an easy airplane to fly, but it's a finesse airplane, and to fly the airplane well, it'll bite you, and that's why I think we had as many servicemen killed in training as we did in contact.
Can you share some numbers with the viewers about, performance, cruise, capacities?
Yeah, the airplane, it cruises about 140 knots, or about 150, 155 miles an hour, 600 horsepower for takeoff, 550 horsepower for cruise. It's got a big old motor, a R1340. It's 1,340 cubic inch motor to generate that 600 horsepower. and burns probably about 30 gallons, depending on what kind of flying you're doing, 30 to 35 gallons an hour.
And you know, typically the airplanes, most models are, you know, D models or C models maybe. There's some Gs out there. Anything prior to a G holds 110 gallons of fuel. So again, at 30, you know, gallons an hour, you have about 3 hours of range. And at 150 miles an hour, it's not a bad cross-country airplane. Holds enough, has a big enough baggage bay to hold a couple overnight bags. You could carry a passenger, so it really is a sweet airplane for cross-country flying.
Now we have to test that theory. I'm glad you invited me. I'm glad you invited me.
So the other thing that's interesting, and these are in Warbird world relatively small, but our airplanes hold 10 gallons of oil. And just to put that in perspective, your car holds about 1.5 gallons maybe. So, you know, they hold in a great abundance of oil.
Like the Corsairs, they are notorious for having that leakage afterwards.
Sure.
Do you have the same challenge?
Just about any radial engine does. And really that truly is one of the reasons that the oil capacity is so great. They expected that they would develop leaks, or they expected they might get shot. And, you know, that extra 15 gallons of oil or whatever the case may be the difference between dumping it in the drink someplace or making it back to the boat. So.
Okay, and on maneuvers with this aircraft, we can do loops, rolls, not authorized to do intentional spins, but spins have been done, and it's got a 5.5 G rating, and you can pull up typically on a loop. You'll try to get around 200 miles an hour or so and pull up 4 Gs, and then you kind of float it over the top at maybe 50 miles, 60 miles an hour over the top, and then back on the G as you're coming down the backside. But we can do snap rolls also. Another thing that's kind of hard on the airframe, but snaps like up at the top of a loop is another interesting maneuver that we can do. Hammerheads, the prop weighs about 200 pounds, so there's a lot of inertia with that prop, and you can use that to your advantage to help spin the airplane around the prop, if you will, at times. The P factor, exactly. And the airplane's got a real light stick. It's real light on the controls, but it has a 42-foot wingspan, so it has a fairly slow roll rate, which is kind of what bites a lot of people down low, is they may get that nose buried a little bit and try and roll through, and then they end up pulling down, and you don't have enough altitude to pull the airplane out. That's where it'll bite a lot of people in the final turn too. You get a little slow, and that airplane will snap off. It'll snap roll off the other direction on you, and not enough altitude to recover. Unless you get that, stop that nose, and it's uncomfortable while you're low upside down to be pushing that stick rather than pulling it. But you got to stop that nose and then roll with the rudder, or else you're not gonna.
Almost reverse power curve, right?
Yes, and it's not real instinctive, but it's something that if you've been flying them for a while, you always have in the back of your mind. Fly with that rudder.
So when you speak about maneuvers and formations and different things like that, keep in mind that this airplane was used to teach our guys dogfighting. So they had to be very good at aerobatics and the different forms of dogfighting before they could get passed out of this airplane. So it does them well, but as Mike said, you're forced to do them correctly in this airplane because it's designed to sort of bite you if you screw it up. So past that, it's a great airplane, and we appreciate your time today. Thank you.
take a new one, one with better flight benefits. I want one better.
Hey, thanks very much for watching. Stay tuned. We'll be happy to show other things for you.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we'd love to see your pictures.
Welcome to Tom's Aviation. Come over here and watch this video.